Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. It's great to be back
I
with
know. I was
you.
looking forward to this day.
Yes, this is a fantastic next speaker and guest that we have. We're so excited. And we are going to kick off first with a video to really introduce our guest, Daryl Davis. But is there anything, Kris, you want to say before?
No, other than I just think we have to get into this. This is a big conversation. And I think this is a perfect way to give our viewers kind of an overview of this amazing man we're about to talk to.
So excited. All right. Well, we will play this video and then we'll bring Daryl up on stage with us.
Awesome.
The greatest speeches ever given in this country were the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln and the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King. Excuse me a minute. This is where he stood and gave that famous speech.
Black men and white men.
All you have is an etching in the concrete. There's no plaque, there's no sign. Millions of people trample all over that, not even realizing how important that spot is. He says, I have a dream. I call this stepping on the dream.
I'm Daryl Davis. I'm a musician, actor, author, and a lecturer. People always say to me, Daryl, how can you have this stuff? Why don't you burn it? As shameful as it is, you don't burn our history, regardless of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the Ku Klux Klan is as American as baseball, apple pie, and Chevrolet.
Hey, Frank, how you doing, man?
Hey, Gary.
Nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
Here's my great Titan robe. You want me to put it on?
Yeah.
We've got members as young as 18, and we also have junior Klan members.
We would fight to the last bullet for our people.
Okay, so what can we all do together as a nation?
Help save the white race.
Help save the white race. On this gracious great balls of fire. How can you hate me when you don't even know me? Look at me and tell me to my face why you would lynch me.
This country's been through a lot.
It still has a long ways to go.
An awful long way, as news will tell you.
I'm mad. We should all be mad.
We have a society that has determined that we should fear the black man.
Give that person a platform. Allow them to air their views, and people will reciprocate. I never set out to convert anybody. In my quest, some of them ended up converting themselves.
Hey, this is somebody I can relate to.
Incredible.
Awesome. Rush of emotions. If we weren't clear, that's the trailer to Daryl's film Accidental Courtesy, and it's amazing. But I am not going to double down on this long introduction I wrote, but I think we should just bring Daryl out and give him some love.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Hey,
Daryl.
Hey there, y'all. How are you all doing?
we're doing great.
Wonderful.
It's really good to see you again.
My pleasure. Great to see you
and
both.
I've done this before.
Indeed.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, keep my wits about me here, but meeting you, I think you know this, and learning about the work you do had a gigantic impact on me.
Thank you.
Just so everybody's clear. I mean, I think your message, it's always relevant, but maybe never more timely. I mean, that's one of the reasons we picked you for this month's Behind the Mic. And just so everybody's clear, the message, don't be afraid to engage with others who have different, who don't share your ideas, your beliefs, or your values. It's a pretty simple message, not so easy maybe for some of us to carry that out. But we were thinking about how the world is so polarized right now. I mean, our workplaces, our communities, in some cases, even our own homes are kind of rough places to be. And I thought maybe we could start out by giving you an example that hit me this week. I have a friend who's dreading the holidays. There are family members coming with very, vocal, big beliefs, making it, it causes a lot of friction and in many cases, probably even pain. And I'm wondering what advice you have for everybody here.
That's been a very big problem, starting with the previous administration when it was in office. I would hear about families getting divided over who voted for who, and that
Right.
kind of thing. We all may disagree on who votes for anybody because we all have the right to vote for whoever we feel best serves us or best serves our country, whichever one that the reason why they vote, either for themselves or for their country, and we all have different opinions on that. But what I say is this: no matter who becomes president of the United States, now or in the future, that person is only going to be around for a minimum of 4 years, a maximum of 8 years. How long have you been with your family? Decades, okay? With your friends, decades. Are
Right.
you going to throw away a decades-long relationship with your family over somebody who's only going to be around for 4 years, maybe 8 years?
Mm.
And Thanksgiving coming up is a very crucial time. That's when we get together with family, regardless of our station in life. And what is even more crucial is that we listen to those members of our family or our work group, our friend group, and find out why. Listen with an open ear.
Amen.
Why did they vote for this person? And if you do that, chances are they will reciprocate and listen to you why you voted for your person. All right. And while we may not agree with the choices, at least we understand why that person did. Oh, well, I can see why you would do that. I don't agree, but I can see why you would do that. So now I have returned some of my respect for you. Maybe not for your vote, but understanding why you did that because it suits you in a certain way that it might not suit me. And same thing, they'll get the same perspective from me. So at least we can sit along and have dinner together. And over time, sometimes those perspectives can change. As we know, there were
Right.
people who vote. This is the third time running that somebody is running for president, right? Some people voted for him the first time, but not the second time. Some people voted the second time, but they're not going to do it the third time. That kind of thing. So people can change,
Yeah.
but nothing affects change until you have conversations with other people. As you just said, that having me on your show the first time impacted your life. So that means something changed that may have not changed without that conversation that we had. Conversations are crucial. It is the most effective weapon or tool to combat adversary, adversity, I should say. All right. But yet it's the most underused. And it's free. It doesn't cost anything. It's called conversation.
I remember you saying that.
Yes. And that's what it's all about. That's what America is supposed to be, that we can have differing sides and we can come together and have a conversation.
We spend way too much time talking about that other person or talking at that other person or talking past the other person. Why don't we spend just a little bit of time talking with that other person?
And something that I think brings people together in ways that maybe people don't know how to communicate. It's when they can have music to share with one another. And you're a renowned blues musician who played piano with Chuck Berry for 32 plus years. And I'm a big music lover. And I read that you said rock and roll was the ultimate bridge builder. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Of course. Okay, so back in the day, in the days of segregated water fountains, segregated restrooms, you and I could not sit in a restaurant together and eat or even go to the movie theater and watch a movie sitting side by side. If they allowed people like me in at all, we had a separate seating section. And there were ropes going around the seats that would say seating for white patrons only or colored seating only, right? And we could not cross sit. That was the law. And if we broke that law by me sitting in your section and you sitting in mine, we would get arrested. That was the law. It was a stupid law, but it was the law nonetheless. Okay, so that same Jim Crow law was in effect for concert venues, music halls. If they allowed blacks in at all, we had to sit in our seating section. And when we went to go see Frank Sinatra or the Dorseys or the Glenn Miller Orchestra, whoever, most people stayed in their seating section. They obeyed the law. All right. But in the 1950s, two phenomenons happened. One was the creation of rock and roll, all right, by black artists like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Bo Diddley, Fats Domino, and others. And it was promoted and popularized by white artists such as Elvis Presley, Bill Haley and the Comets, Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, Buddy Holly, and these people. But that was the first phenomenon. Music had completely had an overhaul from your hit parade, from how much is that doggy in the window to bop, 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 bam, boom, right? You know, and it was driving kids crazy. So while that law was still in effect in the 1950s, that Jim Crow law about seating, the second phenomenon was this: white kids and black kids could not sit still when they heard this new beat that became known as rock and roll, and they bounced up out of their seats, knocking over those ropes and signs. And next thing you know, they're boogieing and dancing in the aisles with each other. This would cause the police to come in and literally pull the plugs out of the wall, shutting off the sound to these concerts. And the concert was over because it was race mixing involved, you know? And so city fathers, mayors, council people began banning rock and roll concerts from coming to their towns, not just in the South, but even in the North, even New Jersey of all places. All right. They were banned, and because of the race mixing. And here's the thing about that race mixing. Understand this. We're talking in the 1950s, the second half of the 1950s, because rock and roll was created in 1955. At that time, white kids and
I was
black.
born in 1955. I'm just saying.
I was born in 2005. I'm just saying.
You win.
So, you know, when the interesting thing is this: those white kids and black kids who are knocking over signs and dancing and losing dancing with total abandon with the other, right? They didn't even know each other at the time. White kids did not know the black kids. You know why? Because they didn't go to school together. Schools were segregated. Desegregation was passed in 1954 by Brown versus the Board of Education. And schools did not integrate overnight. It took decades. Even in 2024, we're still struggling in some parts of this country with integration at schools, okay? So these kids did not know each other. They might have seen each other on the street on the other side of the railroad tracks or something, but they were not hanging out together and going to school and working together, you know? So you had two opposite people dancing with each other without a care in the world. And that was what was so concerning to the establishment that wanted to ban rock and roll. So, you know, when we think of civil rights, great civil rights, both black and white leaders like James Farmer, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, many others, black and white, we tend to forget the pioneers of rock and roll, both black and white. These civil rights leaders, they were having marches, demonstrations, protests, sit-ins, boycotts in order to bring together white adults with black adults. Guess what? These rock and rollers were achieving that with their music, with white youth and black youth. Let's not forget that. That's one of the important things, but yet undercredited things of rock and roll.
It's a really good point. Can you tell us about that time you met the guy in the bar? And
sure.
You know what I'm talking about. I know
exactly what you're talking about. Sure. Yeah. So country music a while back had made a resurgence. It never gone away, but just like the blues or other genres of music, sometimes they fall off the top 40 music chart because the new music has come along, right? Sort of like when the Beatles and Rolling Stones came out, it replaced the people from before. So country music had fallen off the charts, and but then a movie came out called Urban Cowboy with John Travolta, Mechanical Bull, and a bunch of country line dances and stuff. It became so popular that a lot of clubs and bars that had top 40 R&B, disco, whatever was going on back then, they changed their format to country music.
Oh, wow.
And so, if you want to work full time, you played country. And so I joined a country band. I like country music. Listen, country music and the blues are the exact same music, the exact same three chords. All right. It's society that puts us in a categorical box. Oh, you're white. Okay, well, that's a country song. Or you're black singing the same song. Or it's the blues. That kind of thing. So anyway, I joined a country band. It was a pretty well-established band here in Maryland, and an all-white band. And I joined them. I'm the only black guy in the band, and usually the only black guy wherever we would play. there was a bar called the Silver Dollar Lounge up in Frederick, Maryland, which is about an hour and 20 minutes north of Washington, D.C. So the band had played there before. I knew of it. I'd never been in there, but I knew the reputation it preceded itself. Black people were not welcome at the Silver Dollar Lounge. There were no signs, but you just knew that you were not welcome there. And when you go somewhere where you're not welcome and alcohol is being served, it's not always a good combination, right?
Right.
So here I am in the Silver Dollar Lounge. I'm the only Black in there. People are like looking at me, but they didn't bother me. And, you know, when I got on stage and played, people started dancing and carrying on and having a good time. On the first break, after our first set, I was following the band to go sit down at the band table. And I felt somebody from behind put their arm across my shoulder. Now, I don't know anybody in this joint, right? I see the whole band in front of me. So I'm turning around trying to see who's touching me. And it was a white guy, 15, 18, 20 years older than me. Big smile on his face. He says, "Man, I sure love your all's music." I said, "Thank you." I shook his hand, appreciated him coming and coming up to me and thanking me for the music. He says, he points at the bandstand and says, "I've seen this here band before, but I ain't never seen you before. Where'd you come from?" And I explained, "Well, yes, the band has played here before, but this is my first time. I just joined them recently." He says, "Man, I sure love your piano playing. This is the first time I ever heard a Black man play piano like Jerry Lee Lewis." Now, I was not offended, but I was rather shocked because this guy is almost 2 decades older than me.
Wow.
How is it that he did not know the Black origin of Jerry Lee Lewis's piano style? And I explained to him that Jerry Lee got it from the same place I did, from Black blues and boogie woogie piano players, because that's where that rock and roll rockabilly style came from. "Oh, no, Jerry Lee, created that. I ain't never seen no Black man play like that except for you." So I'm thinking, okay, well, this dude doesn't get out much because he never saw Little Richard or Fats Domino. It's the same boogie style. And he didn't believe me. And I said, "Look, man," I said, "I know Jerry Lee Lewis. He's a good friend of mine. He's told me himself about his influences." The guy didn't believe that I knew him either. But he was fascinated with me and wanted me to come back to his table and let him buy me a drink. I don't drink alcohol, but I let him buy me a cranberry juice. So he pays the waitress. He takes his glass, he clinks my glass and cheers me. And then he says, "This is the first time I ever sat down and had a drink with a Black man." And I'm just sitting there like baffled, like, how can this be? Because at this point in my life, and I was naive. I wasn't tuning in to who he was or
Right.
what. So I'm thinking, how can this be? Because at that point in my life, I had sat down with thousands, probably tens of thousands, white people or anybody else, and had a meal, a beverage, a conversation. So innocently, I asked him why. He didn't answer me. He looked down at the table. I asked him again, and his buddy elbowed him and said, "Tell him, tell him, tell him." I said, "Tell me." And he says, "I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan." Well, I burst out laughing at the guy. This guy's joking. And I'm trying to justify what he said. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he thinks I'm joking about Jerry Lee Lewis. So he's going to pull a joke on me in retaliation or whatever about the Klan. So I'm laughing at his joke. He went in his pocket, pulled out his wallet, and handed me his Klan membership card. I instantly recognized the Klan emblem, which is a red circle with a white cross and a red blood drop in the center. I stopped laughing. This thing was for real. So it wasn't funny anymore. I gave it back to him. And now I'm sitting there wondering, what on earth am I doing sitting at a table with a Klansman, But he was very friendly. And we talked about the Klan and different things. He gave me his phone number, wanted me to call him anytime I was back here in this band back here in this club with the band. He wanted to bring his friends, meaning Klansmen and Klanswomen, to see, as he put it to me, the Black guy who plays piano like Jerry Lee Lewis. So I'm not sure he called me the Black guy when he's talking to his friends, right?
Right.
That's
an amazing story. An amazing story.
But we developed a friendship over time, and that led me to wanting to write a book on the Klan, and I became the first Black author and only author to date who has gone around the country interviewing Klan members face to face and writing a book about it. And that started with that guy. I mean, the whole racism thing started way before that, but that was one of the catalysts that put me on this mission.
That's incredible. Well, I mean, this might seem like I'm backtracking, but I think it's a a valid point to make that you grew up all over the world. We talked about this before we went live here today.
Well, you know, that's a very important point.
Yeah.
You know, I started traveling the world around the age of 3 in 1961. I was born in 58. I'm 66 today, if anybody wants to try to figure out the math. So, you know, and how it works is you get assigned to an American embassy in a foreign country for 2 years. When that 2-year stint is over, you return home to the United States, you're here for maybe a year, and then you get reassigned to another country for 2 years. So back and forth, back and forth. I did kindergarten and first grade, third grades, fifth grade, seventh grade, all in different countries and different schools around the world. And we're talking the 1960s, right?
Yeah.
And back then, over here, we did not have a lot of integration. We did not have a lot of diversity. But my classes overseas, my fellow students were from all over the world. Anybody who had an embassy where we had our American embassy, all of their kids went to the same school. So my classmate right here could have been from Nigeria, this one from Russia, that one from Japan, from Italy, France, Germany, Denmark, you name it. The United Nations was there in my class, all right, in the early 1960s. Now, juxtapose that to a picture of my classroom when I come back home, right after my 2-year stint, right? I come back home, I'm either in all black schools or I'm in black and white schools, meaning the still segregated or the newly integrated. And there was not the amount of diversity in my class that we have today in this country.
Right. And I'll never forget, I'm guessing you're thinking about this too right now, but when you first experienced racism at the parade story, can you maybe share that?
At the which store?
The parade story.
Oh, parade store. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like, and to make it more simple so people can envision this, well, for you young people out there, you know, you all are accustomed to watching color TV, you know, or movies in color. Well, before they were in color, they were in black and white. And so, you know, of course, when you start out in black and white and you move into color, it's like, you know, you don't want to look back at the black and white unless it's just for sentimental reasons, right? You know, you so many vivid colors, right? Well, coming home from overseas was like going from color back to black and white.
Yeah.
All right. So the parade story. So one of those times that I came back home was 1968. I'm age 10. I'm in the 4th grade. And I was one of 2 black kids in the entire school. There was a little black girl in the 2nd grade. All right. So my friends, you know, were basically 4th graders and 5th graders, and they all were white. And so some of my male friends were members of the Cub Scouts, and they invited me to join. 1968, I joined the Cub Scouts. I was the only black scout anywhere in the area. And every year they have this parade. This was in Massachusetts, and it's called Patriots Day, where different groups get together, all the scouting groups, Boy Scouts, Brownies, Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H Club, etc. And they march from Lexington, Massachusetts to Concord, Massachusetts, which is the route of Paul Revere. And it's called Patriots Day. So I'm marching in Patriots Day. I'm the only black participant in this big parade. And somewhere along the parade route, I'm suddenly getting hit with bottles and soda pop cans and small debris from the street by just a small group of spectators mixed in with the larger crowd. The entire crowd was white. The people throwing the things were white, but not everybody was throwing things, just a small group of people. I would say maybe 4 or 5 people. I remember there being a couple kids and a couple of adults who I assume were their parents. I don't know. I didn't know them. And when I was getting hit, I turned to see, you know, what was happening. And I saw this group of people throwing things and yelling, but you really couldn't hear what they were saying because you got a band playing up.
Right.
And yeah, the British are coming and all that kind of stuff. So, but they were angry and they were throwing things. I just assumed these people over here don't like the Scouts. That's how naive I was. It was, you know, it wasn't until my den mother and my cub master and my troop leader all came running over and covered me with their own bodies and escorted me out of the danger that I realized no other Scouts were getting this special protection. So now I'm wondering, what did I do? I didn't do anything. Well, why are they hitting me?
Right.
And all they would do is kind of quiet me down and rush me along tell me to keep moving, everything's gonna be fine. They never answered my question. And at the end of the parade, I still did not have an answer. And when I got home, my mother and father, who did not attend the parade, were putting Band-Aids on me and getting me cleaned up and asking me, "How did you fall down, get all scraped up?" I told them what happened. I didn't fall down. I told them what happened, and for the first time in my life, at the age of 10, I had never heard the word racism before. My parents sat me down and told me about racism. And I literally did not believe my parents because my 10-year-old brain could not process the idea that someone who had never seen me, never spoken to me, knew nothing about me, would want to hurt me for no other reason than this, the color of my skin. It made no sense. So my 10-year-old brain couldn't process it. And to further prove to my parents that they were wrong and I am right, is the fact that the people doing this to me did not look any different than my friends at school or my little friends overseas, whether they were my fellow Americans at the embassy or my little French or German or Danish or Swedish or Norwegian friends. They look the same and they don't behave like that. So it has nothing to do with skin color. Why are you making this stuff up?
Mhm.
Well, of course, this is 1968. I quickly learned. I saw the what happened in the wake of Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination. We were only 8 miles from Boston. Boston burned to the ground. Right here where I am now, Washington, D.C., burned to the ground. My hometown, Chicago, every major city burned to the ground with violence, and this thing called racism. So now I understood that my parents were right. This phenomenon that I never heard of does exist. But what I did not understand was why. And that's when I formed the question in my mind at the age of 10, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? And so that was the quest that I have gone on and that I continue to go on in dealing with KKK members, neo-Nazis, Proud Boys, whatever, all right, to find that out.
You know what's occurring to me? We are having so much fun that this half hour is flying. We're going to have to do a 2-part series here. Is
Absolutely.
that okay with you? Okay, so let's figure out how we end this on a high note, maybe with you telling us, I mean, you clearly formulated that question.
Well,
so
I will.
At 10, but
Okay.
what you did with it is so impressive, and maybe leave us with, again,
I'll leave you with some tips, and next time I'll walk you through the process step by step. But in the interim, understand this: when two enemies are talking, they're not fighting; they're talking.
Right.
They might be disagreeing, maybe even getting a little loud, but at least they're talking. It's when the conversation ceases that the ground becomes fertile for violence. So you want to keep the conversation going. And even with your biggest adversary, you might be on opposite ends of the ideological spectrum. If you spend 5 minutes talking to that person, you're going to find something in common, and that gap closes. You spend another 5 minutes, you get even closer. You found more in common. When you get here, you are having a relationship with your adversary, whether you like it or not. You're having a relationship with that person. You keep on talking. Now it's closing in more. You're being friendly. You still don't agree on everything, but you're being friendly. And that causes a cognitive dissonance in that person's mind. And when they realize they have found more things in common with you than they've found in contrast, and the trivial things they found in contrast, such as skin color, or whether you go to a church, a mosque, a temple, or a synagogue, begin to matter less and less. And then they began questioning themselves is, how can I hate that person?
Right.
You are so incredible, Daryl. Truly, this has been a life-changing conversation, and I just have loved listening to you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I agree. I think we got to do a 2-part because this was so incredible.
Yes. I mean, your entire I'm going to call it a framework. We'll talk about that next. Just how do you explain that? Just so I am teeing it up properly.
Okay.
Your overcoming fears, confront their prejudices, that whole thing that you taught us last time. I want to get into that. It's just fascinating. But remember, the thing that's the coolest about what Daryl teaches us is he's talking about conversation. It's that simple. Like, why aren't we doing that? I'm so I needed to hear from you this week. I got to tell you that. I appreciate you to pieces. I literally consider you an American treasure. I'm not kidding. And I want to do this again. And are you nodding? Can we do it again?
We can do it every day.
Let's just do the Daryl Davis show.
Okay.
I love you all too.
All right, I'm all in.
Well, thank you so much, Daryl.
Thank you.
Awesome. We will see you soon.
Bye.
Wow. He's amazing. Oh my goodness.
Oh my, there's so much we didn't get to cover.
Absolutely. Man, I know. I was so engaged, just holding on to every word he was saying.
Right.
So, Kris, thank you so much for setting up this conversation with Daryl. I absolutely loved it. I'm really excited for part 2 with him, and we'll keep the.
I think maybe we just let people know we're going to do part 2 next, so we can just keep this going and finalize it. The success that he's had, not only in the white supremacist world, Ku Klux Klan, whatever, but I mean, in all sorts of ways that can really help each of us is important. And then we'll have our next speaker talk to us about consistency as we go into the new year, trying to keep those New Year's resolutions, not just keep them, but actually adopt them and bring about positive change to each of our own lives.
I love it. Well, it's so great to be on with you today. We'll end it here, and we will keep it going with Daryl next time.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Have a good one.